Welcome to the semi-monthly meeting of the Tellico Village Board of Directors. We're still operating as we have before to protect meeting attendees. And we do have members that are attending remotely today. Been a lot of big changes since the last time we met with the reopening of a number of Tellico Village amenities operating under the guidance of the Tennessee Pledge, requiring businesses to protect their patrons and staff alike. So with that, let's get started. May I have a motion to approve the April 22nd minutes? Pat White. Second. Marty. Any changes or discussion? All in favor? Aye. 6-0. Okay, the next item on the agenda is an update from the Hopewell Fire Department and their COVID-19 response. And Barry Clark is here from the fire department to address us. Barry?
Well, first thing to say is, y'all are probably not real familiar, but Monroe County's operation is very different from Loudoun. And what the Monroe County Fire and EMS has done is mainly avoidance. We just reopened the fire departments for regular runs Friday. And give you an idea of what they get over there. It's pretty close to what y'all did here, but 90% of our runs are medical now. And of that 90%, probably 15, 20 of them are businesses. You get very few, you get a lot of diabetic and stuff like that, occasionally a CPR, stroke. But we have had EMS trucks run all of those calls, unless they call for us or unless it's a call of dire emergency. We would respond to heart attacks, to bad diabetic, CPR in progress, stroke, something like that. If somebody calls and said, I just don't feel well, or my chest hurts, fire's not going, we send in the ambulances. But now we have opened back up regular on everything. I have not released the first responders yet in our neighborhood, mainly just due to the age. And I may not do it until June 1. I may do it mid-May, but I may hope to June 1 before I let them respond. There's been no COVID calls in there, really no calls whatsoever since this stuff started up. But if they go in, they'll do the same thing we do on fire. They'll have to wear masks and gloves going in, socially distanced from the patient, no touching the patient or history until you sit there and talk to them, find out what it is. And then we'll have to decide from that point on. But that's the main thing. It's just I want to protect it, and due to the age of most of them, I'm sure I won't let them lose you. You know, I'm one of them. Our main thing really, you know, was avoidance. I mean, that's what they told us to do, avoid. And I remember back in December and January, almost everybody in Monroe County EMS was just sicker than dogs. And half of them are now thinking this is probably what that was even way back then. But the cases have remained low in Monroe, and there's been one death. And the reason is we're rural. You know, we're separated. It's nothing like when I'm in Illinois City. That's what we've been doing. That's what we'll continue with unless they change our protocol. Okay. I'll have to try to answer any questions you might have on it. But
Any questions from the board for Barry?
Are the first responders in Tahiti now participating?
no, that's the ones I've got on hold.
You got
I don't want them responding quite yet. They can, you know, I wouldn't stop them if it was a heart attack or something like that. If somebody calls in and says, my stomach hurts, I ain't going. Not on something like that. Not yet.
Somebody would like to ask the question for me because I don't have a microphone. What are you looking at? What criteria are you looking at to start this fund?
Just watching how this stuff goes in the county. If it doesn't get any extreme jump up from what it is now, I'll release them. Perfect example, I work part-time, 1 day a week at a golf club down in Athens. And they had like 10 cases. Next day they had 300 because of a nursing home.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole other thing. Nursing homes, these people are not all getting COVID because somebody comes and visits them. They're taking runs out all day to the doctors, to the dialysis centers, everything. And anywhere they go, there's a big chance they're picking something up there, so it's just a hard thing to stop. I was working with a guy in Polk County. He said, well, we got none. And I said, really? You got 76 now, So Monroe's actually one of the lower counties. And if it'll hold that way another week or so, then you just got to go live your life. You can't live in fear like that. That's people in there, the ones I've seen that live there and all, they're very cautious. People that come in and play golf and everything like that, there's not a lot of social distancing. I went to Lowe's and Home Depot this weekend because I had to have some stuff and it looked like a state fair.
Oh my God.
So a lot of people just, think, oh, it's over tomorrow because they said it's going to be around here a long time.
Yeah, this is certainly not a quick fix kind of situation.
Oh, and it'll probably come back. Like they said, it's just another form of the flu. The only thing that amazed me is just how it spreads so fast.
Yeah. Other questions for Barry? Barry, thank you for coming. I do appreciate it.
Happy to do it.
It's always nice to get an update from you guys.
Have them call me if they need any more. Make Winston wear a mask all the time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, next agenda item is COVID-19 briefing by Winston Blazer.
Thank you, Mr. President. And they hear me well on that, Beth. I'll start off with the report on COVID-19 with regard to the POA operation. With the count of our managers and estimate of $45,000 to $50,000 of expenses dedicated to treating the POA and sanitizing the POA because of the COVID-19 situation. 40,000, a little over 40,000 of that is to the cleaning company Centos, where they professionally cleaned all of the POA buildings during the shutdown phase of our operation, and came in and used their equipment and disinfectants and so forth to, I won't say sterilize, but de-clean of our operation in both public and work areas. Golf World has been running full tilt. The tee sheets on pretty days have been pretty much filled up from early morning till late in the afternoons, as late as 5 to 6 o'clock. Courses have been fairly full on even not so pretty days. They have now opened up the pro shop for limited access, 2 people at a time inside the pro shops, and are monitoring that situation. There has been a request from the Golf World, Chris Sykes, to go to 2 players per cart, open up that option. We would still keep the option if a person prefers. They could go solo in a cart, and we feel like that, given the fact that they can now dine in the restaurant after their golf match and be, sitting next door to each other on a top table, that there's not much difference. So, provided the board's in agreement with that next step, we are going to authorize the golf operation to open up that availability of 2 carts. That would help with the shortage of cart situation we've been having, and as Chris Sykes being hyper sensitive to the turf area of the business, that would cut down on cart traffic, which means less wear and tear on the golf courses themselves. So with that, that bit of information and the board's agreement, we will go to,
Well, bouncing off the term that you used, excuse me, hypersensitization to turf management, I think, boy, that's a mouthful.
In other words, he cares a lot about it.
Yeah, cares a lot about it. And my position is going to be, I care a lot about, like what Barry was saying, the spread of this. So with that in mind, the federal government, the state government, the county government, we're all going with these advices that we get every day that you guys keep us informed about and that we keep up with ourselves. But the idea is that you can now go to a restaurant as long as the tables are 6 feet apart. But I can sit with the next other couple shoulder to shoulder. What you're telling me and what I agree with is that just like with the pickleball courts, rather than opening up every other court, we opened them all and trusted them to follow the guidelines. And that's what we're going to do here, correct?
correct.
2 in a cart if you want to. But if I go play golf and I'm not comfortable riding 2 in a cart, can I still ride 1 in a cart?
And yes,
Is it going to be additional expense?
no.
No. And as we discussed this morning, Marty and I had the discussion, what if I'm out of carts and I've got a tee time at 12:30 and not enough people have made the turn and there's 2 carts in my group, I can put my bag on Marty's cart and he promises to me not to touch my clubs, and he does because he's conscious and I'm conscious of that. Am I going to get charged for that?
No.
And then the outside is that if I'm not comfortable being on a golf course, riding with 2 people in a car or walking or whatever matter, I don't have to play, do I?
Absolutely not.
Okay, and that's some choices I've been making. So what we're saying here is that we're following the guidelines, but you don't have to follow the guidelines. I don't have to follow. All you have to do is do what you think is best for you, up to the restrictions that we're having to live under. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, just want to make that clear for me.
And the golf team will be, sanitizing the carts in between play and so forth, steering wheel, wipe down. So all of those procedures are still in place. But no, you're absolutely correct, Mr. White. The ultimate option is up to the property owner themselves as to what they want to do.
And can I ask another question?
Of course you can.
And it's not related to golf, but it's along the same lines. We did open up the pickleball courts.
That's correct.
A lot of people wanted to play tennis and pickleball. How have they responded to the rules that were enforced in place? Have they responded well?
They have. Surprisingly, the rec staff was concerned about how the rules and the changes and the limitations would be received. But as Simon reported to us on Monday morning, the operations were running smoother than expected. Most of the property owners that was using the facilities and pickleball courts, they understood the situations, they were abiding by the rules, and they were very pleased to just be back in some sort of use of their amenities. So it's been surprisingly well received, and we're very happy with that. I know Simon is. The pickleball courts are running at 100%. They're going at 45-minute intervals. They've been policing themselves very well. Simon's very pleased with that. The fitness classes are running at about 70% capacity. The exercise room is running about 50% capacity, and it's been going very well. Also, I'd like to report that in our downtime in the rec world, Simon and a lot of his volunteers have been working on some common property projects. These are parks that they built, 4 or 5 of them within the confines of the village. These have been put on common property. These were vetted and agreeable to the nearby property. Center. He's been quite busy creating these mini parks and also building trails. Maybe estimated somewhere between 4 and 5 miles of additional trails have been built. So kudos to Simon for that service that he's brought to the POA. In food service, Monday we opened up the Tokwa Clubhouse dining room and the Tahiti Clubhouse dining room. The sales for Tokwa on Monday just about doubled compared to where they were prior to the opening of the dining room. And likewise for Tahiti and that dining room, the sales approximately doubled in that. So people are appreciative of the dining rooms being open. Now, just for comparison purposes, the restaurants have limitations on them. We remove tables, we limit seating, and there's no large groups that can be entertained. And so our capacity levels now versus pre-COVID-19 are 50% of what they were before. So we will, until things change, we will never be at the food service level that we were in, say, late 2019. In the administration building, we have now opened up the lobby for property owners to come in and take care of business. We have put in shields in front of the 2 windows, the ACC window and then the admin window, where people come in to inquire and make questions and follow up with POA business pertaining to their homes and lots. And also, Mitzi has purchased 12 thermometers that are somewhere in the shipping pipeline for us to use on our facilities when we go to further open up the processes here in the Pucko Village world. Public Works is running pretty much as normal. 4 people out. We have protocols in place where we question the employees when they come in. If they answer yes to any of the questions, we ask that they get checked for COVID virus. What's turning out to be a bit of a problem is the results take longer than 4 days to get some sort of determination. We're hoping that testing and all that procedure will improve in the coming days, where there's a shorter test results time. But so far, we've got a little bit of a dilemma there. But for all intents and purposes, Public Works is up and running. They're a little behind in certain areas because of the weeks that we were down to skeleton crews, but I'm sure they will have themselves caught up in a matter of short order. Welcome Center and Communications, their lobby is now open for business. They would prefer, for the general inquiries and visits that you call, and try to handle as much via the phone as possible. Call and notify them what you want, and they can work with you through the drive-in area and pass information and brochures and whatnot to you that way. But if for whatever reason you need to come in, the lobby is open and there'll be somebody to assist you and help you with that. And as far as just general update on the COVID situation, that's it for me, and I believe Parker is going to address some financial.
Before we get to that, since the board has been involved in all of the opening plans and has voted, I'm going to call for a motion to make the change to the cart rule.
I move.
Second.
Second. Is there discussion about the change to the cart rule? All in favor? 6-0.
Thank you, board.
I guess I just want to throw a shout out to Simon and his team.
They've done a good job.
Really good job of helping with the facilities, especially the pickleball courts, being them, and their staff is doing a great job making people as comfortable and being as efficient as possible.
Welcome, Parker.
Thank you. Would you get slides up on the screen?
Okay, back up one if you would, Mitch. Okay, so what I plan to share with you today is an update of sorts. It's not going to be a lot of numbers and P&Ls and cash flow statements, but an update more qualitative regarding the financial impact report that I last presented on April 22nd. And even that wasn't the original when we started this process going back to late March, early April. And we looked at some cases or scenarios that were hopefully were pretty extreme. But we were trying to test, as we are even to this day, do kind of a financial stress test on the system to see, well, what if these various assumptions ended up this way regarding things like delinquency rates and housing starts and that sort of thing. What does that look like in terms of financial impact on POA? So Mitch, if you'd go to, or Kevin, whoever's running this next one, thank you. So this says original financial impact assumptions. That's actually the assumptions from April 22nd. So they're not the originals, they're the last that you saw. And so what we had done the last time around, we did incorporate staff recommendations regarding deferral of capital and expense items. Pretty much took those across the board. We built in a deferred 3% merit increase for 90 days. So that pushed merit increases from April 1st to July 1st. No retroactive pay adjustments built in. Importantly, new home starts were decreased. That's actually a typo. The budget was 130, not 120. And we decreased that from 130 to 80. We lowered property transfer fees, or at least the rate, not the price, but the number of property transfers lowered to 90% of budget through the end of July, and then depicted a return to budget levels. New tank installations and water sewer connection permits, those go as goes new home permits. So with a decrease in permits, you get a decrease in tank installs and connection fees. Said food service would continue on the current trend. Time we estimated about 90% of budget. That's the POA portion of that cost. And 200 additional delinquent assessed lots was our assumption at that point. We did move the water tank and wave attenuator back into 2020 to the last half of the year. In some of the earlier cases, a bit more extreme, we pushed those out into 21. But the consensus opinion was that those are needed sooner, and we need to at least start on those by the end of this year. Likewise, HA5 was returned to 2020, slotted in August. It had been budgeted in May, and we'll see where that ultimately lands, but I think it likely will be done this year. Along the way, on April 1st, we had a rebid and renewal of all of our insurance policies and packages. And perhaps no surprise, but insurance premiums increased. And at board directive, we took out some additional coverages, liability coverages that required some additional premiums. There were a number of changes that affected those programs. We've already reviewed that in some detail. Now, I'll be quick to say I do not have April financial statements yet. Those are being prepared right now. But I can speak to some of the longer lasting, what I call leading indicators. And for now, I'll say these things look pretty good on balance. So next slide, if you would, please. Okay, the staff recommended deferrals of capital and expense items. When we started this plan, or process rather, it was pretty severe. We asked department and division heads to give us basically everything that they thought they could limp along without and defer probably into 2021 as a means of conserving cash in 2020. We were planning for, or at least preparing for, what we hoped would be kind of a worst case scenario. Now, most of those individual projects are still deferred, but we are beginning to do some selective maintenance projects primarily. Some of those being done while facilities are closed. Doesn't make sense, and they are all needed and necessary projects. It makes sense to wait until we have a full startup again, and then just have to shut down to do things like the Wellness Center therapy pool replaster, Kahidi clubhouse flooring replacement, and I think the Kahidi pool replaster. So those are things that they're needed. This is a timely time to do those, and it makes sense both economically and operationally to go ahead and do those things. And they're not huge dollar amounts. Mostly they're coming in under budget. The deferred 3% merit increase is still in there and intact as we had originally assumed it. Now, so we took new home starts down from a budget number of 130, that page is correct, to 80. And yet, already year to date through the end of April, we have 55 new home permits approved and another 10 scheduled for review at the May ACC meeting. So if you count those that we already know about in May, well, you're at 65 homes. So that's half the budget, and we're a third of the way through the year, 4 months deep. So that's certainly the pace of home building does not appear to have slacked off. Likewise, property transfer fees, we assumed that they would drop a bit to 90% of budget through the end of July and then return to budget. Well, transfers are blowing by all of those numbers. They're holding up well and exceeding budget year to date. We've already got 208 property transfer fees versus a budget of 100 for that time period year to date, 4 months. So the full year's budget is 300. We're already at 208. April transfers were 49. So there's no drop off in transfer activity. In fact, it's held pretty steady right around that 50 transfers per month level. And certainly we're on track to exceed budget for the year. New tank installations and permits, those decrease or increase as the case may be, along with new home volume, because they follow new home starts. We closed 19 tank jobs in April, and we have closed 61 year to date. So again, that's on track to exceed the budgeted number of 130 for connections and tank installs for the budget year. Okay, next slide. So food service, food service certainly is holding its own. We just reopened dining service just a few days ago. Have gotten some acceptance of people coming inside to dine. I think people are still being pretty cautious though about getting out, and particularly into a close contact and dining situation. But all that I've heard about the operations of food services have been positive. Cleanliness is certainly top of mind, and everyone is doing their part to try to make this safe and still an enjoyable experience. 200 additional delinquent assessed lots was one of the assumptions. Well, it hadn't happened yet, and we've not seen any uptick yet in delinquencies. Admittedly, it may be a little early because people that have lost their jobs, okay, they're just now getting to that next assessment being due and having to make that decision whether to keep their assessments current or let them lag. POA lot sales, we've had 39 lot sales year to date. So if you look at that combination that determines performing lots, combination of POA owned lots, which gets affected obviously by lot sales, and then delinquencies of existing lot owners or homeowners, the total non-performing lots for the year are down 29 from year end. So we're 29 better than we started the year in terms of non-performing lots. The water tank and wave attenuation we're still into 2020 back of the year. HA5 still slotted in August, although that timing certainly could change. And the insurance premiums we did update to reflect board-approved coverages. That, by the way, insurance renewals cost us about $74,000 increase compared to budget. That's for a full year. But that's what it costs, and that's what we have to pay. So overall assessment of the business, well, we're seeing some encouraging signs based on leading indicators, things like housing starts, property transfers, delinquencies. We're still managing projects. We're watching each one of them closely, both project approvals and spending, but we're doing the things that are needed when they're needed. Golf play has been packed, as Winston noted earlier, especially during good weather. Most tee times are booked and are being kept. In one of the cost-cutting measures that was built into some of the first scenarios or cases that we ran in this financial impact modeling, we had the deferral of golf seasonal help, and that was about $119,000 was the impact. That was done at the time thinking that the worst could happen and that we might be faced with a complete shutdown of golf operations. Well, that's been anything but the case. In fact, golf, like I say, has been packed, and if anything, we're loosening the reopening of golf to, as we talked about a little bit earlier, 2 per cart, if those players choose to do that. So we're pulling that. In fact, we just signed personnel requisitions a couple of days ago to begin hiring that seasonal golf staff because it's needed and it's needed now. So just because we had some of these things on an assumptions list, we're still trying to use good judgment and do those things that make sense, both for the short term and for the longer haul. Now, Rec, we'll lose 2 months of revenue for the months of April and May. That's about $150,000. And that's because we have suspended for those 2 months the monthly billings for those that are on a monthly plan, or at the end of their term, we're extending the 6-month and 1-year plans by an extra 2 months. However you look at it and whatever the timing, Simon's operation averages about $75,000 a month, and we'll lose 2 months worth of that revenue. Food service recovery still kind of wait and see. Limited dining options are now open, but villagers, we think, will be cautious in their return to dining out. So overall, my conclusion is that we're well positioned to weather this storm, but we all know it changes weekly, and we're carefully managing all aspects of our financial condition. You'll see more of this in 2 weeks when we report out on the month of April. Could state some of these things more definitively, but I'm trying to read the tea leaves right now, and so far the tea looks pretty good. So with that, I will close and take questions.
Questions for Parker? Well, I guess you have no questions, so you're free to go.
Okay, very good.
Okay, Parker, there's a question on here. Cat Service asked if the HA5 work will be done when the weather allows, or if it's going to be off in the fall when it could be too late to be effective.
I'll let Mr. Gagley chime in on this if he chooses to. Jeff and I had some conversation on this earlier. We've had some contact with the contractor. We actually had him lined up, I think, to start in May. We've asked about his availability, and at least at that moment, he said early June he would be available, but we've got to make a decision and commit to a time slot. I think it will be sooner rather than later. And at least from where I sit, there's no financial reason that it needs to be delayed into fall.
So Parker, does that mean you'll probably be bringing that to the board at the next meeting?
Staff needs to talk about that, but it certainly could come back to you pretty quickly.
Okay. Parker, this project is potentially scheduled to start in July. And we want to be done before September so that we don't get into the bad weather.
Okay, that sounds like a reasonable plan. And like I say, financially, there's no reason to push it out any later into the year.
Okay.
Needs to be an operational decision.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all.
So next on the agenda is the ACC report.
Move to this report that we have here. You see, we were budgeted for 130 for the year, which we are halfway there with our first meeting in May. We'll permit 10 tomorrow if everything goes okay. That'll put us at 65. But right now, end of April, we were at 55. That puts us 2 ahead of where we was this time last year. So it is a good year so far. It's going good. I know Parker and people have been worried about the numbers for this year. From my conversations I'm having with the big contractors in the village, they have set their schedules for the year. So they've already got those contracts set. They're working on 2021 schedule. So I still think we'll easily reach our 130 goal for a year. I'm not real concerned about that. If you look on down, we've got 170 job sites going right now. So that's a lot of homes under construction. That's not counting looking at the miscellaneous projects that are going on. So a lot going on. We permitted 29 miscellaneous projects in April. We have permitted year to date. I don't have a year to date number on here, but a lot of miscellaneous projects going on this year also. So when you factor that in to looking at those and looking at the job sites under construction, a lot going on to deal with. You know, our average square footage is heated square footage is holding around the 2,100 to 2,500 square footage, and total is around the 3,000. So about consistent all year long, but a lot going on. A lot of stuff going on. Any questions about that?
No questions.
Good deal.
So public services update.
Thank you. I want to go over a couple of the projects that we've got going on. I know you've been getting updates every meeting, but just like to keep you informed of what we're doing. The Wellness Center roof, we have had experts come in and look at the damage that has occurred on the roof from the construction and looking at their reports now and leaving most of that up to the legal to try to handle where we go from there. They did remove some panels and look at the roof below to see what a possible solution is. That was the contractor that did that. We've never heard any response back from him. So we don't know what his plan is at this time. He hasn't presented anything to the POA. So it appears it's going to be in the legal world. And we had a contractor out of Nashville who did our Topa Clubhouse come down Monday. And we know we had some leaks in the building because the roof wasn't completed. They had him cover the ridge caps and the hip and the eave areas that the leaks were occurring in. They're coming back tomorrow to cover the rest of the blue exposed board to try to keep any leaks from occurring there. We just don't know how long this will be before we resolve the issue. Okay. Okay.
For the bond legal activity that we're going through to get the roof fixed, will it also cover any damage that has been caused to the interior?
Don't know yet, we're still evaluating the bond. When they submitted all the documents to the bonding company, but that's some sort of response. In the near term, at that point, we'll be discussing what the magnitude of the claim is and the process for repair. Certainly we'll be addressing any interior damage that's occurred. We're also doing all that we can by tarping to mitigate any damages at the end of the processing the claim.
Okay.
Other questions on the Wellness Center roof? Okay.
Okay, next slide. Chota Road failure. I know that everybody has their eye on this. This is something that's been nagging at me for the last 3 years. Evidently, I can't get it fixed. So, but we did have the engineering group who oversaw the work come down. They pull some cores. They give us a report back making recommendations of what needs to be done. Whether we take those recommendations or not, we did go out and get some costs for doing the repaving or a concrete. Both of them, the repaving is going to be in the $45,000 to $50,000 range for the one lane. The concrete's about 3 times that much for one lane, but we're still looking at the technical solution that we'll have going forward. But we'll be talking to the engineering firm and DuraCap for some help in getting this paid for. Shouldn't be the POA's responsibility. It failed. So we are getting costs for milling and paving and also doing the concrete, as I said. Questions? Okay.
Is it likely to be finished this year?
Yes, I certainly hope to get it done before bad weather sets in at the end of the year. I think Kevin is confident we may be able to get that settled.
I'm hopeful.
I like confident better.
Kevin, it's all on you.
Okay, next is the water storage tank. Still in the design phase. The Public Service Committee looked at the design when it was at 30%, gave comments back to Jacobs, got some good engineers, the Public Service Committee that made some recommendations. Jacobs looked at them and accepted all their recommendations and incorporated them. We're looking in the next 2 weeks to get to 60% design so that we can review it and see if there's any other things that we need to look at. We're still looking at bidding starting in late June, awarding hopefully in July. Depending on what the world's doing with tanks out there right now, it could start and finish this year, but it'd have to really be quick because it's going to be a short year after July to get that in before the rainy season starts again. Any questions on the tank?
Okay.
So is the likelihood of this being in place for our irrigation season next year?
We are targeting to get that done. We think it's going to be able to be done. That gives us about 9 months to get the tank done. It shouldn't take 6 to 7 months with good weather. So yes, the answer is yes to that. That's our target. Yacht Club Breakwater made a recommendation to the Public Service Committee Monday. We met via Zoom on the breakwater. We have an engineering firm that came down or is coming down to take a look at the breakwater and see what the damage is going on, what the repairs could be, either repairs or replacement. You'll be seeing at your next board meeting a funding request asking for the engineering to be released so that we can get this done. This looks like if we do anything to it, it'll be a late fall project to get everything in there. We actually have some preliminary bids from Floating Docks, Knox Barge, and we have another group that I can't remember their name right now that Bruce Dillingham helped us get. So the engineers actually have 2 or 3 proposals to evaluate once they go down and take a look at it. Also with this proposal, they will be looking at the Tenacity breakwater just to view it and see what's going on. And we'll get video of everything to see what is happening to our breakwaters underneath the water where we can't see.
Yes, question. Got my microphone. So anyway, the question is, we're not locked in to Jacobs at this point.
We are not. We've not signed any proposals.
We haven't paid them a dime.
We've not paid them a dime.
Because from what I've seen and from what I'm hearing, this is a very expensive proposition.
It is.
Yeah, and I think we owe due diligence to go look at all alternatives. And since this is not a safety issue, it is not a fail right now issue, that we do have a little time left this year.
We do.
I think we need to look at every opportunity to avoid paying for this proposal as much money as they're gonna ask.
There's,
A huge amount of money just for the divers,
I understand.
ridiculous amount.
There's a lot of additional engineering that goes into it because the lake has changed since 25 years ago with all the action, the waves, and what the push against the breakwater. But yeah, I understand what you're saying.
And then we have Wind River, we have Tennessee National, we have other places that have installed this type. Within that 25 years, we could go back to that expertise and compare. And again, I'm not talking about fixing it, I'm talking about the money we're gonna spend to look at it.
I understand.
Good deal.
It is expensive.
Thank you very much.
Unless you have scuba gear, then I'll let you help.
I could get some.
I know you could.
Unfortunately, you won't be going down there with the engineering expertise. It'll be a nice swim, though.
Okay, Kevin. Just an update on a couple of sinkholes that occurred in the last 3 weeks. At the corner of Chattooga Drive West and Linden Lane, we had a sinkhole occur probably about 2 weeks ago. It took out or compromised all the utilities in that location. So once we started digging and exposing the utilities, we had to get the phone company in, the cable company, Loudon Utilities to relocate their electric lines. So it took us a few days before we were able to really dig and get to the crux of the matter. We had Geos, who's our geotechnical team, to come down, look and see where the rock was, a solid rock that we could tie into, and give us a recommendation on how to fix it, which we took, and it is fixed now. I think it got through with it last Friday, if I'm not mistaken. So that project is done, seeded and strawed. Hopefully it won't come back. Over on Tenasseee Court, this project, if I'm not mistaken, happened either right before Christmas or right after Christmas. We had a gentleman's home got compromised by a sinkhole. It took his driveway down about 6 inches. And the reason we know that is when the driveway fell, it broke our water main, which aggravated the whole thing. It just flushed the sinkhole out more, made the road dip down quite severely. Got all of our water system stabilized and put back together, and have been working with that homeowner and his insurance company to get a fix for that. This week, Rimco started this week with bores, and they're jacking up the driveway now. Once they get done with that, they'll go to our area on the road in the right of way and do some ejecting in there and raise the road and stabilize the area underneath it so it doesn't fall out on us. But they are paying their costs. The homeowner pays his costs to the property line, actually to the edge of the driveway, which is onto the property a little bit. And then we take care of what's in our right of way. So that project is moving on. It looks like about a 2-week project. I know Clayton's been supervising it for me. He's doing a good job at it. It's keeping me informed every day. So we've had a couple of sinkholes with all this rain, which is a lot less than I had anticipated by this time. Any questions? All right. The last slide I have is just a little bit. I know we've been talking a lot about the COVID virus. We did have carpet cleaning, tile cleaning. We brought Cintas in along with our teams, and they did a deep clean sanitation. They wiped everything down. All the touch points were wiped down. They're finishing up this week with the yacht club. I believe is the last one that they like, and they'll be done with everything. But we've had a lot of things we've learned and are still learning, and things we never thought we would have to deal with. And the state has been issuing new guidelines for the pandemic, and we have been incorporating that into our emergency operation plans and enhancing them a little bit to fit our needs. Want everybody to know that while everything was kind of shut down for a little bit, our water and sewer teams were on site, on call, prepared to deal with anything that come along. We had our liaisons with the TAS and LUB. If we had an issue or all of our people were sick, they would come in and help us as we would go and help them. So we got a good relationship with the utilities right around us to be able to have that backup for us. That's it. That's all I have.
Any questions for Jeff? Any questions from outside? Okay. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
But don't leave. I'm not done with you.
Leave from here though, right?
Okay, next on the agenda is Tom McPhee making a presentation about the proposed portico improvements at the Kahidi Clubhouse.
What are you saying? What's that?
Thank you. Do your job. There you are, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Tom. Welcome back.
Thank you. So this is, I think what we would call the final steps of proposals for private funding and the portico at Kahidi. So if we go to the first slide. So this is a picture. The current seating capacity at the pub is definitely not adequate to accommodate demand, and not just on Wednesday nights. And this is obviously pre-COVID, but you know, for lunches, for breakfast, for a lot of times, the pub is overcrowded. And people with hearing problems who want to enjoy lunch or dinner can't find a quiet table because of the acoustics and the amount of people in there. So that's the current state. The next slide. So the proposal is, the intent is to increase the PO revenue by expanding the seating capacity of the Kahidi Pub and Grill all year round. And as you all know, this is the only full P&L restaurant for Tellico Village. The scope of the project would be to install 9 Bromic 6,000 watt, 208 volt electric heaters with all the necessary controls, infrastructure, 4 manual clear vinyl curtains on the pool side of it that would be rolled down probably around November, then would be cleaned up and rolled back up in March, but for all intents be left down for the colder months. Can't really say winter, but for the colder months. It would also include 4 motorized clear vinyl curtains on the mountainside that could be engaged as necessary, because there would be times where you don't want to look through the curtains and enjoy the mountains. We would follow a proposal, we would follow the model of the portico itself, where Jeff and his team oversee the installation, do the procurement to ensure it gets done properly. Private funding would write a check to the POA for a total of $59,350. Now, I'll show you the quotes on the next slide. The quotes are getting, how can I say, old. And so I think it's prudent if we go quickly on this, if it is approved and it's something the POA board wants to do. And there is a 4-week lead time on the electrical equipment at least.
What's the life expectancy of those curtains?
Life expectancy, if they're cleaned and looked after properly, is 15+ years.
Very durable, because a lot of the curtains that you see of this nature, they just don't look good after about 1 season. So you've done your research and you're satisfied these will aesthetically look good. Your last about 15 years.
If they're cleaned properly, stored properly, yes. The ones that don't look good are, you know, especially when they're the manual ones, when they're rolled up, if you just let anybody roll them up with the ropes and they go up like this and, but the vinyl lasts, if it's clear vinyl, and if it's, again, clean and treated properly, they last.
And Winston, whose responsibility is this going to be? Who are you going to assign this to?
On the cleaning,
Yes, and rolling.
be the key, clubhouse staff. If you're strictly talking cleaning, if you're talking maintenance, that would fall back on the maintenance, public works maintenance.
So when you say clubhouse staff, you talk about restaurant people?
Restaurant staff.
You have enough people on that staff to do this?
Yeah, I mean,
It's
varies in your high pollen seasons, you know, they're going to be coated daily. There's some question as to, you know, on a rainy day, will there be enough staff there to maintain operations there? But on a general, you know, operational system, yeah, that'd be enough to wipe them down.
Won't they pretty much be rolled up during the high pollen season though?
Yeah, you beat me to that one.
Yeah, okay.
Well, you can rest assured on a thunderstorm or a rainy day or something, they won't come down.
Sure. Yeah.
I would say it depends what's going on at the pub, whether they do or don't. If there is a large social gathering after we get through this, you would probably be correct. If it's a normal day, probably not.
The clubhouse itself, correct me if I'm wrong, the clubhouse itself and the new community center acts as a better barrier than we used to have up there.
Oh, yeah,
Sitting up
Oh, yeah.
There's not near as much wind or rain coming through there.
there is not.
And you're talking April through October. And, from time, again, rain or like today, 20, yes, 20 degrees colder outside now than it was this morning. They may come down, especially if you have an event.
Yeah.
So the concern is, if you bring up, we need to make sure that you get rolled up properly and clean before they get put up, right?
Correct. And again, I would see that as a once a year for the manual curtains, because they would stay down the whole time. There's no reason to roll them up and down. So these are the quotes. I don't know what I need to go through each item here, but it's the description of what it is, the supplier, the part number, any details such as the heaters, they have to be specified as 208 volts. The quote number, quantity, price per, and the total comes up to $59,350.39 is where we end up. Out of the 230,000 and a bit that we collected for private funding, we have 59,280.83 left in the bank today. So a shortfall of 69.56, which I think we can find someplace. Next. This is just contact information for the company, their website, the name I've been working with, who they are, their phone number, and their email. So hopefully all the information is there that's needed. This is a picture of one of the heaters, 6,000 watt, 208 volts. They're available in either black or white. My recommendation would certainly be black. They are dimmable from 0 to 100%. So you can turn them, crank them up full or half or anywhere in between. And they can all be controlled with one master remote. This is the layout, proposed layout, how they would be. The top of the right hand is the pool side, so they would come and be installed in each of those, I guess, indents up there. And left is an example of the specifications on how they need to be mounted and clearances from Bromic themselves. This is an example of their curtains. These are high quality curtains. They're stand winds up to 80 miles an hour. The power ones roll up into themselves, much similar to any of the shade awnings you see on houses and such like, only they're vertical on an angle. And this highly technical drawing shows where the curtains would go. And again, the top of it is poolside, so there would be 3 manual curtains going across the back, and then that little 4-foot, 5-foot walkway would have a curtain on it. And then the bottom is the mountainside, where you would have 1 on the left-hand side and then 3 going straight across to the. Any questions?
Well, just one left. I asked this, so I asked again, just to make sure. We have no problem, no issues with safety as it relates to these heaters.
We do not. We work closer on getting the product that we were happy with. I think we aggravated quite a bit until we got what we wanted, but I think we're fine.
So the reason I wanted you to stay is that I wanted to ask this question. Are you good with this plan? Okay.
I looked at it many months.
Okay.
So yes.
So with that, can I have a motion to approve this project?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Marty seconds. Discussion.
I have a question from the audience.
Okay.
Will this change the look of the portico? We worked very hard to get it to look as good as it does now.
Little change to look, but we're not trying.
But from what I've seen, I don't think it denigrates the look.
That's the concern.
Yeah.
Those curtains,
I mean, these are, the heaters are used in a lot of high-end restaurants for patio seating. The curtains are as well. So yes, it will change, but it will not degrade the appearance.
I think with the project we do, we'll get the best look out of anything that we can do with these curtains as opposed to other ones I've seen. I think, although we will see a little difference in it, it's going to be, no matter what we do, it's going to have a little difference.
So we don't anticipate these curtains being used much in the summer.
No, this is merely, because in the summertime, you can set aside anyway. And if it is raining, it has to be a very hard wind to bring the rain in under. So
we need to look at this as what else an off-season kind of thing.
yes,
Well, what you're doing is you're making the restaurant basically a 4-season restaurant. No,
Talking about aesthetics.
I got it. Is there another question?
What are the ongoing increased operating costs of the project? That's one. And then the other one is, can you just summarize what all is involved in that price? You quoted it's the heaters, the curtains, everything, installation and everything. I think that screen was kind of small, so people want to know what was the $50,000.
there was turnkey operations for both the electrical, installation of the heaters, and turnkey for installation of the curtains as well. What was the first question?
What's going to be the increased operating cost?
These heaters cost to run about 88 cents an hour if they're on full, and that's based on California, because that's where they're made. So his data is on California electrical costs, which I think are quite a bit higher than here. Steve would, I don't know if he's on, but Steve would certainly know that. But so if you run them for an hour, that's $8. If you sell 2 pitchers of beer, you broke even. If you get another 20 meals, you've made a lot of money.
Another question is, can the kitchen support additional capacity?
Absolutely, they do it in the summertime now.
Any other questions over there? Okay, any other questions from the board? All in favor, right hand?
But this is a comment, but this will have to come back through again, because we are doing this anyhow, so that'll come back through, or will this be in?
No, it doesn't have to. We're approving this project right here.
We're only doing oversight, we're not investing.
The reason it comes before the board is the Kahiti Clubhouse is a board asset. And for any major change that's being done to that asset, regardless of whether it's private funding or not, you know, the board should approve whatever we're doing. So that's why I'm asking whether the board is going to approve. Well, for the vote again, all in favor? Okay, it's 6-0. Thank you.
Steve has a question.
Steve?
Waving his hand.
No, I was voting yes.
I'm sure he was counting.
Let's get on with it.
Yeah, it works for me. Well, thank you very much, Tom.
Thanks, Tom. Hey, Tom.
Okay. Yeah, this is self-service.
Self-service.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
They also have my thoughts, Tom's on my
I'm concerned with my question.
There you go.
This did not go through the back. This didn't go through the back.
Okay, so Asian carp update, Marty, you're on.
Doesn't need to,
All our acquisitions usually go through the back.
but they're not paying for it.
Money comes to us and then we pay for it. It was just a formality. We didn't go through the back.
Parker, do you feel the need to go through the FAQ on this?
I think at this stage, probably not.
Okay.
My question whether we should have seen it earlier, maybe so. I don't think we did more.
Okay. Answer your question? Answer your concern?
It did.
Okay.
We usually have rules that we follow. We didn't follow up here.
No.
I got it. Marty?
Okay, I'll provide a quick update on the Asian carp. Next slide, please. Just a review, as you recall from the last board meeting that we had a presentation by the TVA's Dennis Baxter on what the TVA is doing in stopping the mitigation or stopping the migration of Asian carp. This presentation is available on the TVPOA website. And as you may recall, the TVA is primarily focused on keeping the carp from entering the Kentucky Lake and Lake Barkley from the Ohio River, as there's no evidence of any spawning in the Tennessee River since 2015. And in addition, they're performing a study of where it would be beneficial to install barriers, if any, on the Tennessee River. Now, that being said, the second bullet refers to a TVA board of directors meeting tomorrow at 10 o'clock, and it's live stream. Links to that meeting were sent out in a telegram yesterday. The reason we bring that up is because reportedly on that agenda is this issue of a temporary electric barrier at Watts Bar Lock. And it's not specifically identified in the agenda, but it's going to be under the environmental protection and natural resources portion of that agenda. They solicited comments from people, so the Asian Carp Committee for the POA board issued the following statement to the TVA board. As representatives of over 8,000 residents, Tellico Village Property Owners Association Board of Directors advocates TVA-approved initiatives to prevent the infiltration of Asian carp into Tellico Lake, as well as other lakes further downstream on the Tennessee River as soon as possible. So we'll see where that goes tomorrow. The next bullet point just talks about the money that's been spent to date in mitigating these CART by both state and federal agencies. You can read that. So basically 600 million so far, and it'll be 1.5 billion in the next 10 years. Keep up to date by visiting the TVPOA.org website. Click on Agent CART under the News tab. There you'll find a contact list to write to your legislators to keep this issue top of mind. Again, I think it's very important that we continue to do that and not just sit back and see what happens. Also, to be sure to check out the Facebook page, Stop Silver CART Tennessee, for information, videos, and resources to stay informed and learn how you can help. Your POA board continues to work with the TVA, the TWRA, WBEFC, and other local, state, and federal officials and agencies to keep Asian CART out of Tellico Lake. We appreciate the ongoing support and assistance of Tellico Village property owners in these efforts. Thanks.
Any questions for Marty from the board? Okay, any questions from outside? Okay. That brings us to the ever popular other portion of our agenda, and one issue that I want to. Steve's go. Steve, I'm sorry.
I'll wait for you. I'll wait for you.
What I want to do is talk a little bit about drainage issues, and to do that, I've asked Winston to chime in.
Thank you, Mr. President. The POA is aware of some drainage concerns in the village. Due to the fact that the POA has been put on notice by an attorney of one of these situations, we will not discuss drainage matters, the specific drainage matters, in public meetings. These drainage issues can be complicated issues, and each situation needs to be individually examined and studied and dealt with on an individual basis, because they're never two alike. Please call Public Works with any drainage concerns you have so they may evaluate the matter and advise you of how it can be remedied or fixed or the path that we should go down. And I want to emphasize that one more time. Please call Public Works with these drainage concerns so we can be looking at it and work with you to try to fix problems. Thank you.
Any discussion from the board? Any questions?
Rick.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Just might say that, let the property owners know that we spent quite a bit of time this morning talking about drainage issues and the POA response, and that's why Winston is letting the folks know if there are issues to get a hold of Public Works. So this is on our radar screen.
Good point. Thanks, Steve. Any questions or comments from outside? Any other issues? Well, with that, I move. Motion to adjourn?
Oh, Carla is a new grandmother.
That's true.
That's why.
That would be another.
And she's in a picture, and it's the cutest little kid.